This is where we're putting our focus in our Kickstarter this morning as we journey on Wednesday's edition of Morning at NTV. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Priscilla Regina Naloga. Now, youth are bearing the brunt of the unemployment crisis with the Uganda's latest labor statistics. And this is from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics, painting a troublesome picture for our country's employment landscape. While the headline economic growth figures may appear stable, many of our Ugandans are actually continuing to struggle, and they are also finding it difficult to find meaningful and sustainable employment or even work. Now, with one of the youngest populations in the world right now, we may be speaking about that as a prideful thing, but at the same time, it seems to be straining us in terms of national resources, to mention but a few things. Uganda is also facing a mounting pressure as thousands of graduates and job seekers are entering the labor market. That time it used to be every year, but now a single university has 3 intakes in a single year. So do the mathematics. There's more being churned out than was before. The result is growing frustration, underemployment, and widening concerns on whether our country's education and economic systems are adequately preparing any young person for the future. And so the report also did indicate disparities affecting women and urban populations, while raising fresh questions on the effectiveness of past job creation programs. So this morning we're going to be examining Uganda's unemployment crisis and the youth being most affected. What practical solutions could turn this wave around? We're being joined by Topista Chiza, a Programs Director, African Youth Development, who's a specialist focused on employment, empowerment and skills advancement for young people, not only for Uganda, but across the continent. Good morning to you, Topista.
Good morning, Priscilla. Thanks for having me on NTV, and good morning to all our viewers.
Okay, so let's break some ice here, Topista. If our greatest resource that we can pride in right now as a country is our young population, why are many of them struggling to find work?
Yeah, so unemployment has been an issue on the agenda, I think, of government, civil society organizations, and the many other stakeholders. It's been something where I come from and where I work at African Youth Development Link. We develop what is called the National Youth Manifesto that prioritizes the key youth issues. And one of the key issues that has always been the first priority is the issue around employment. And why are we talking about this issue? First of all, like you've said, this country is young. You have 73% of the population of Uganda below the age of 30. That's quite a lot. But still, if you look at the youthful population, which by definition, according to Uganda, a youth is someone between 18 to 30 years. And I think that's the period of time someone is allowed to, start working. So for the youth, those make around 23% of the population. So you have most of your population, 50% as children. Yeah. So as a country like Uganda, if you want to create gainful employment opportunities, what do you do with such a demography? So in the first place is that as a country, I think we are not investing a lot in children. Yeah. If you have 50% of your population as children, that means in no time, these are the people that are going to form a workforce. But what kind of investment are you making for the children? So first of all, if we go and look at the root cause, which is the education system, you'd assume that if we are to have people who would easily find employment, then the education system should be able to provide the relevant skills that match what the job market wants. But also this education system should be able to skill young people to be able to start up their own employment. But then if you look at the statistics, I think the completion rate at primary level is only around 56%. So meaning half of the population of children drop out even at primary 7. Yeah, even when you talk about the increasing number of graduates at the university, I think that is caused by the population growth. We have a high population growth as a country. So the first problem that we have as a country is education. And when we talk about education, we shouldn't just focus on the formal education, but there is also a bit of the informal education. Because imagine if a child has dropped out of school, or they have completed P7 and they are not continuing with the education, then what happens to them? There was that kind of informal education where we would be taught wherever we are in our homes to be productive. Like, for example, we would be taught to do certain things like crafts, and that happened at a family level. We would be taught to focus ourselves on agriculture and be productive and be able to take care and sustain our families. But what is happening currently? Currently, the other challenge that we have in the community that now affects even the informal bit of education is that you have a lot of the young women who become pregnant even before completing primary 7. So you can imagine a child giving birth to a child. How will they be able to transfer certain skills or teach them the basic of the skills like parents should be? So that is one of the key challenges that we have as a country. But still around the education system is that you have the people who are planning for this country, who are developing the curriculum, as people who have not even created jobs for people themselves. When you look at the country like Uganda, I think the talk has been around, and why some children drop out of school is that they see even the graduates just lingering around without jobs, and yet the people who did not go to school are the ones that own the biggest businesses. We've seen even people who have not been school owning, even universities. They've started up universities, and then they start questioning, why waste my time to go to school? Yeah. So what happens is that the people who are planning for us, the people who are developing the curriculum, do not have the experience in job creation. And what do we do? So going forward, I think it would be important to bring the people who are creating jobs, the people that are in businesses, the people that are owning investments, to come and be able to develop the kind of curriculum. Because one of the key issues that the people, the employers are talking about is the skills mismatch. Like the person comes from a university or a higher institution of learning, they are looking for a job, but then they don't have any skill. Like this company or organization has to start from scratch. We get interns at our organization. You also, I think, get interns here. You get fresh graduates, and they literally know nothing. They cannot even open or operate an email. What is that? Yeah. So I think we need to rethink how we develop the curriculum and what we really focus on in terms of skilling by bringing the people in the private sector on board, the people who are
going to receive
them so that they tell you the kind of skills that you should impart as universities. Then the other thing, Priscilla, that is that I find as a problem is that we likely spend a lot of time in the education system that gives us nothing. Like, for example, if a person has spent 7 years of primary, if they drop out at that level, or if they complete primary 7, can they find any kind of like job that they can do?
Yes, they
don't.
Can.
But they don't have any certification as such. So it's like, have they wasted all the 7 years in school? So we assume that at each and every level, there must be skills that when they come out of either at primary school, there are certain skills that I have that would enable me to find a job or start one, even at S4 and at all the other levels. But imagine you have us study, like, for example, I studied mathematics is compulsory, yeah? I think you only drop mathematics when you complete senior 4. Is when you drop mathematics. But look at all the equations and the hard things that we studied in mathematics. How are they relevant to me right now if I'm not a physician or such? So had we to specialize at a certain
earlier stage,
yes, and really focus on what we are good at, and then reduce the number of years we spend in an education system. Because if you look at the number of young people that graduate, they graduate at around 23, 24 years, yeah? And when they graduate, remember here in Africa or even in Uganda, we are so much dependent on our parents until we are done with school most of the time. When you're done with S4 is when you start thinking, okay, now where do I start from?
And that was in the era of maybe our parents, but I think the parents of today, if the children will finish school and still keep them around.
Keep them around.
There's something there that you have mentioned and has caused me to have a reflection of our curriculum as a country right now and how much time we spend in that cycle. We get to have, and I'm trying to speak into the curriculum versus job market mismatch there. You do have people having to wait for university second year or third year in order to go for internship. Yeah. In the international curricula, you do have students in primary going for internship.
Yes, yes.
To be able to understand how the markets work and the skills needed so that they come back knowing what skills they need to focus on. Yeah. In secondary, they still go for internships, and this is for in the international curricula. So in that place right there, how would you advise government actually upskill itself to begin with in order to accommodate that next generation so that the mismatch between curricula and job market is actually reduced?
Yeah, so like I said at first, we need to incorporate the employers, the people who are providing employment opportunities, the private sector, multilateral companies and investors into redesigning our curriculum. Yeah, we shouldn't sit as a people because I have a master's or I have a PhD in education, so I'm best placed to, design a curriculum. No, I don't know what creates jobs in the country. So you'd find that if the private sector is brought on board, then they would, identify those kind of skills that we transfer to our students. But then the other thing, I visited Covenant University in Nigeria. And one of the things I saw, the moment you reach the compound, you'll see something unique about the students. Yeah, the way they walk, the way they talk, the way they handle themselves is very, very unique. So I was interested in trying to see what happens here that makes these students be like this. Yeah, and then I was told for them, the moment you enter university, the first thing is that leadership is incorporated in there, and also business and entrepreneurship is incorporated despite the course that you do. So you start university, you start on a project. So by the time you leave the university, you already have either a company or something that you have started so that you go out there and employ other people. That is not happening in our universities. Yeah. So I think that needs to be addressed, that while we are at university, there are certain things that are basics, yeah, that should be compulsory. Entrepreneurship is one of them. Let me talk an example of, about the presidential skilling hubs that skill the youth that are called the NEETs, the ones that have maybe dropped out of school, the ones. But look at the kind of skills that are being given. They don't match this century skills that are required. So they come out of that, and then someone cannot even sew a very good, nice dress. But still, when I was in Nigeria, I saw that even in the village, that village tailor in the smallest village will do for you a very nice dress. In just one day, you'll have it. But you take your dress to the tailor here, you'll see what happens. They will take a lot of time. They will take 2 weeks or even a month. But even when you get it, the quality is not that good. It's substandard. So we cannot compete if we are still acting that way. So I think entrepreneurship should be incorporated, because going forward is that we have realized it will be hard for someone to come out and find a formal job. But if they have that entrepreneurship skill or financial literacy skills, they will come out and be able to start up something for themselves. And then the other thing that I want to talk about that fails us as a country, I think we have over-politicized everything in this country, Priscilla. If you look at our country, it is over-politicized that even the education system is politicized. We are valuing and resourcing and putting a lot of investment in the politics other than the things that are going to cause economic development for this country. Like, let me give an example. Where I work, where I come from as a civil society organizations employ a lot of young people. They don't just employ, but they also provide opportunities for internship, for skilling. Like, for example, my organization, it is an organization that employs young people, but then also we have been able to nurture and train many young people that have been taken on by other organizations. Because like we said, these are young people, when they come from university, they lack the basic skills. They cannot operate a computer, they cannot speak in public, they don't know how to communicate, they don't know how to manage time. So those skills they learn from our organizations. But But what happens right now, it is like civil society organizations are in competition with government. Like government is working so hard to kill all civil society organizations. First of all is that the closure of DGF left many organizations without resources. So many people actually lost jobs during that time. And then secondly, it came to the time of the closure of USAID. When USAID closed, still a lot of people are now unemployed. So even for the little that is left, you have seen government recently, they closed around 5 organizations. The previous election, they closed like around 50. And government does not look at how many people are employed, the impact that has on employment. Now they're talking about the sovereignty bill. I am sure that one is going to hit hard.
We'll get into the sovereignty bill right after this break. We're being joined by another guest. You've talked about politicking. We're being joined by one who's supposed to represent government on this position of the youth unemployment crisis. As we do continue on, do stay with us. The board member of NSSA. All right, we do continue on with our conversation, the national youth crisis that we do have on our hands in Uganda. We've been having the conversation with Topista Chiza, who is coming in to join this conversation as a programs director, Africa Youth Development. Now we're being joined by Anne Birungi, Workers MP-elect, and also serving as the General Secretary of Uganda Nurses and Midwiferys Association. She has also been a member of the board of NSSF, to mention but a few of the crowns and pearls that she wears today as a woman advocate and a woman leader. You're most welcome, Honorable Elect.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting me. Yes.
Now, as a Workers MP elect, you're sitting at the right table in the right time. Topista and I were having a conversation around the mismatch between employment and our education system right now, and she was of the view that perhaps those that employ need to be brought on the engagement tables with the education leaders to be able to integrate and develop continuously programs and systems that will feed into good working environments for the different stakeholders. But that being said, I would like to hear from your description what you understand as employment today.
Employment today. I look at employment. Of course, we have very few people who are employed, and the youth are more affected. And the people who wake up and they say, we are going to look for money. And how do we look for it? You must be employed. The hustlers outside there. It is very, very unfortunate that when you talk about employment in Uganda, you will find that the majority are unemployed. Because all of us, we eat, we have to work. Then when you have to work and you have no job, it's a worry for all of us and a worry for the whole country.
Okay. On that note, the latest UBOS report has placed unemployment at around 12%. And I want to find out from you, what does this figure actually really mean for our Ugandan economy, but also for any given ordinary household?
I attended the function when they actually when they released the report on 16th April. It was my interest. I felt like I should go there and physically see, listen, discuss what is going on in our country. And that was the time we had just come from Chankwanzi as members of parliament. We were pumped with out of knowledge, ready to go outside and work and see how we start the new parliament. But what I picked from the figures, it is majority of the people who are in the work, like people who are working, are more in the informal sector than formal. And that tells us that maybe our country, we have not done much to help the people outside there looking for jobs, our children, and therefore we need to really work hard as parliamentaries to see how we help, especially the young people who are aged between between 18 to 30, because that number, I think those are people who have just come from the university. They are looking for jobs, and they have no jobs. So we have to, that is the time when you actually start work and you feel you want to go outside there, start earning a living. Some people start producing children. So that is the time really you can get frustrated and even feel. But again, on the other side of where I saw a problem, to me, in my view, is that you see, when you're looking for a job, they will tell you, why there are bigger numbers there, they will tell you that you need experience. And these people have just come from school. But also, the 12% of the whole group from 15 to 64, the working group, they need, we need to see how the policies protect us. Because there are people who are not working, not because they don't have jobs, but also the upbringing. So the family background is also part of the cause of those big numbers of the people who are not employed. So the way we bring up our children, when you're bringing up a child, you need to allow them to get exposed, and you need to be keen and try to see, what is my child interested in, or how do I nurture this child, so that by the time they start working, they are already shaped. And I think the European countries, they do it better. If they say child trying to when the child is interested in music, they will support them in music. If they see they are in every if they support the ideas, I can say, and they support innovations. So, but for us here, you find that you are going to leave this child for the school. And also, I will talk about the universities. The statistics today in Uganda is at around 700,000 graduates come out every year, but around 200,000 they get the jobs. So what does it tell you? That actually there is
there's more being churned out.
Yes.
But the places they're being churned out to have not expanded.
Yes.
If anything, they're actually shrinking. I'm going to ask you to hold your thought here. You did make a very critical point that Topist also did make mention of, that I think the first skilling collectively should begin at home. Charity begins at home. On that note, Topista, Honorable here has mentioned something interesting, the mismatch between formal and informal. There's been an increase in informal employment, yes, and a decrease in formal employment. Could you help us understand reasons why, and is it going to get only worse or better?
Yeah, so I think the informality, and what is causing the informality is the kind of policies, the kind of programs that government has tried to put in place to support employment. So in the first place is that they talk about agriculture being the backbone of Uganda, and one would assume that that would be a sector that should be formalized to create employment opportunities across the value chain. But then what makes it still informal is that most of the people are still focusing on subsistence agriculture. So that is why most of that sector is informal in nature. But also if you look at the nature of businesses that we start, is that each and every time, or the problem that happens in this country is that while government tries to say they are creating employment opportunities, then they will come up with a taxation regime that stifles, businesses that are starting up. So people feel, instead of formalizing this business, let me remain informal so that I don't suffer some of the taxes that come with me registering or formalizing my business. So that is what most of the young people do. They will want to remain informal to try and avoid these taxes. And then the other thing, Priscilla, is that if you're to support job creation, then you need an environment and infrastructure that does support that. But if you look at the cost of doing business or starting something in this country, it's really high. You can start up your small business, because if you look at most of the young people, the kind of businesses they will do, they will want to start up a saloon, they will want to start up something around welding, but look at the cost of electricity. It is so high, and everyone knows that, and we've been talking about that. So if the cost of doing business is high, then there is a likelihood that it will stifle the businesses that would start or expand and grow to employ other people. And then let's look at the wealth creation programs that government has always started. I think ever since that government started coming up with these programs, the assessment is that most of them have not achieved that much. They have failed. If you look at even the current one that they are talking about, the parish development model, where a person is given, if you are giving a person 1 million to invest in agriculture, as a person, I have also tried to invest in agriculture, and I realized if you're to benefit from agriculture, then it needs real investment, real money, not just 1 million that is being given to people, and then maybe the public servants want a certain percentage of it. So a person goes and they want to invest 700,000 in agriculture, thinking that they will be able to be productive. No. Then the other thing is government has not supported people. Let me tell you, Priscilla, what worries me is that if you go even at your local stall, you will find tomatoes from Kenya. Tomatoes are coming from, the nice ones, those nice looking ones are from Kenya, yeah, on that local stall, yeah. I have someone who recently ventured into tomato growing, some young man, but when he tried to look for the market, these people started telling this young man that, no, for us we want the other ones from Kenya because they are looking nice, they are long lasting and all that. And then you wonder, why isn't government supporting our farmers to have the good quality seeds when they are planting, good pesticides, good fertilizers like Kenya does? It's not just tomatoes. The Irish potatoes come from Kenya. We have mangoes, we have oranges from Kenya. So yet when we try to export our products in Kenya, usually what happens is that Kenya has refused most of our products, even the milk. We even struggle to supply the market here in East Africa. So I find that as also one of the biggest hindrances to job creation in this country. Then the other thing that I want to talk about, for most of the people or the viewers, if you look at countries that have really created employment for its population or its young people, they have been strategic. Like, for example, like we have said, if we are to skill and ensure that our young people are employable, then we must work towards ensuring that we are giving them the right skills. For the countries like the Asian tigers that they talk about that have transformed their countries, is that in the first place, these Asian tigers looked at their population and then they were like, I think we need to transform this country in the next 10 years. So they looked at their demographics, they looked at the nature of their population, and then they identified the kind of skills that they should give to their children. And then they purposed also, like for example, there are a lot of employment opportunities that come with infrastructure development. Like most of the time you'll hire a Chinese company to come and construct the road. Right now as I speak, Kampala is like a construction site. Roads are being worked on here and there, but what are the contractors? Where do they come from? They come from other countries, although we don't have trained engineers here. So what other countries did to solve that problem is that they purpose that when a company comes, then they tag along it a local company, so that this local company is learning from this company that has come from abroad, so that at a certain point in the next 10 years, we should have our own companies as Uganda construct our roads. But that is not happening. since we started right now, and I think in the future we will still have to hire companies from somewhere to come and do our roads while our engineers just sit in offices. And then the other thing that I want to end with is our politicians here. So I think one of the best paying jobs now is politics, yeah? So if you want a good paying job, just join politics. That is why it is a do or die. Our politicians are earning some good money. Recently, while they were in Chankwanzi, the president promised each of them, I don't know if they will have the 100 million, each one of them, but where are they investing? Are our politicians creating employment opportunities, or they are giving tokenism just to keep them in offices in power? So given the salaries they get, I would expect that they would be the people that would go back and create up companies that would employ the young people in their communities. But for most of our politicians, even those that have benefited from corruption, they will construct an arcade. And for that arcade, for the young people to work there, you need to pay rent.
You're targeting resources, and that's how resources get diverted. The money was given to help politicians dust themselves off the elections and the pressure that they went through, but also to help them swear in. So if they divert the resources, what that to be regarded as corruption? Anyway, we do have a politician who was in Chankwanzi here. Let's talk about something that is actually a very serious contributing factor to this mismatch, where we're continuously seeing an increase in informal sector versus formal sector, and that is the tax regimes that continue to tell people that, you know what, I'd rather stay here, earn my clean 10 million Ugandan shillings, and it will be less taxed, than go to the formal sector where I earn more money, or the same 10 million Ugandan shillings, and it will have 40% in pay and other taxes that will be deducted from it.
I don't want to divert myself so much from the taxes of this country, yeah. Because I think she's right when she talks about taxes. Because one of these days I was even wondering when it came to the 30% pay. When the trade unions in this country met the president some time back, and that was we usually meet him before Labor Day. Actually, I'm also inviting him now that it's better we sit with him and we discuss these things, especially when we are going to celebrate the Labor Day on 1st May. And we usually get an opportunity to discuss one-on-one and have a look at taxes, factors affecting the workers in this country. So the taxes have become taxes. I was imagining if you are getting like 1 million and you have to, and your salary is taxed highly, and you have to collect money for fees, for example. So you find that if you have like 5 children, you have to save for those 4 months. That alone, when you are employed, you feel like leaving that job and you go to informal sector, because already I think the statistics also which you both released, it showed that majority of the people are in service. The employment is more in service, and also we saw that it also showed that there are many people who resign their jobs, and yet we are saying there is no employment. So you find that somebody is resigning the job because the employer is pretending to pay. And when it comes to taxes, it embarrasses you. Because I've already given you that example where you are looking for fees for your child, and that salary is fixed. So you are supposed to look for the fees of 5 children in 4 months because the children are going back, and also the taxes are there, and that is your fixed. But you don't have side hustle. So some people, they decide to resign their jobs because of those taxes. And at the same time, I think that is why there are many people working in informal sector. Mm-hmm. But we need also to see what to do, especially for the young workers who are actually looking for jobs today. Now that the technology is taking the space, they need to get more involved into technology so that they can run away from the competition of the people who already have money and they are working
So, Birunji, on that note, the young people are already utilizing technology. If there's any demography that is actually using technology to the best of their ability, it's the young people. They no longer need to have physical spaces in order to do and earn a living for themselves. That's the unique thing about them. But that being said, they have to do that, but they have to put into consideration that data is still a bit expensive compared to the region markets here in Uganda. You also do have to think about connectivity for the last mile of the young person who you would want to adopt technology in them, extending their businesses to as many people as possible. How, as a workers MP, these are some things that have come to your table. What other concerns have come to your table to help workers make sure that they have some sort of security?
The concerns that have come to our table, for example, there is this SACCO money that the government has been helping with institutions. You find that some people get that money and others, they don't get it. Like, for example, you had the teachers were given 21 billion. Now, that is a sector. So it means those ones have been empowered, but the nurses also want the same money. So those are some of the complaints. So we need justice. We need to see that if you are extending any money for support, for someone to get a side business, for example, if you're working here, but you also want to have some side business, or people want to borrow money at a reduced interest rate, it should cut across. The government should plan well. We need to see how we plan for the little resources that we have, so that if it is money for SACCO, everyone is getting it. The way they have decided to give the money for the skilling hub for every district, also the workers are complaining. They are saying, okay, if it is about supporting me in credit, then it should cut across. That is one of the things. And even in private sector, it should come here. And you know that we have money there which you can borrow, because this borrowing, like I've told you already about that person who is collecting the money for the salary. It's supposed for the school fees. This person is also suffering, has to pay rent, and also has a loan, and on the same 1 million. So we are looking at that taxing salaries, allowances, taxing allowances. For it is even worse. If it is my overtime, you should leave my overtime. If it is lunch allowance, you should leave my, because allowance is allowance. It is given for a reason. Then if you want to tax, you can tax the what? The salary, but also start from somewhere. Like you can start taxing salaries from let's say my proposal would be like 1 million and above, but taxing someone who is earning 335, and you know this person also has, that is where you want to get the taxes, but you can get the taxes from other things like taxation, yeah. So there are a lot of things we have to do in Parliament, and we have to discuss things because many people say URA, but URA also comes out and says, but for us we propose, but the members of Parliament are the ones who accept. So you start wondering. And I also want to talk something about that salary of members of Parliament. I don't think they earn well, because at the same time, there is no social security in this country. I want to tell you, those members of Parliament receive a lot of requests from, I can say, social requests, not even to ask that I would like you to start for me a business, because the salaries every day you have to share it with the community, because the community, they don't have social security.
They're not given salary to share with the community.
That is what is happening.
That
it is supposed to be their personal.
They must pay for.
By the way,
it's not the responsibility of our taxes to be able to help with that. But on that note,
but speaking of social, the environment, I was just giving you that information.
The element of social. The report also has indicated that there's more young girls that have been captured in this unemployment window than men. And so I wanted to find out from you, especially in the urban centers, what could be the factors driving to this?
That, I beg your pardon?
There's more women that have been caught up in the unemployment bracket than men.
Of course, we have always seen that women are not empowered. When it comes to gender equality, you find that our background, the way how jobs are given, people prefer to give jobs to men than women. And also the corruption today. I think men are more corrupt. I'm sorry to say this. They give chinchudogo so much than women. Women, we fear. Sometimes there is a job and they say that this job you must give money, and for you we fear even to give that money. So some of our women really, they are not employed just because of that. Because corruption is too high, and these men have been able to take the space.
Okay.
The other thing is that women, when we have a lot of things we do at home. So somebody prefers to give a job to the man than a woman, because they know maybe you'll get pregnant, you will do what. But we have tried so much. But I wouldn't, it goes back to gender. We need to do gender mainstreaming and make sure that we continue advocating for the women. Okay. Yes. And our country has done that.
As we come to the close of these conversations, I know that there's immediate, short-term and long-term considerations that must be put on the table. If we should be moving away from this conversation and say in the next 5 years, what would be your recommendations?
So first of all, my recommendation would be minimum wage. I know that Parliament had passed that, but the President did not assent to it because he said it will chase away his investors. Why is that most of the investors who come to Uganda is that they want to manipulate young people, pay them less for more, yet they work for more. Because if you look at the industries that have been created, even in the industrial hubs, is that the other time when the minister met those young people, they spoke out on how much they earn and how it cannot afford them the current standard of living. So there is a manipulation of the young people. So if you see that the percentage of unemployment is only 12%, but then there is a high level of underemployment. Most of the young people are earning less than they should earn. So going forward, I think there should be a minimum wage. Because why do we have our young people go to the Arab countries and other countries? I think those countries have set a minimum wage that if a person is doing this kind of job, they cannot be paid less than this. And that has spurred kind of like growth and development.
And has attracted Ugandans
to go there. Right. Because the lazy young people that we say are lazy, how is it that they are going there and they are working even overnight, if you listen to their stories? Yeah, it's because we've not done enough here. So I think the minimum wage, given that we have our MP here, minimum wage is one of the things. Then secondly, where I think we can create employment opportunities is agro-industrialization. We focus so much on the subsistence agriculture, but if we create opportunities around the value chain in terms of agro-processing, manufacturing, I think we will be able, because we now have a market that is coming, the one for oil and gas. They want eggs, they want this and that, but there is a likelihood that those things will be gotten from Kenya if we are not prepared enough as a country.
All right, thank you so much, Delpiste. Birungi, what would be your closing recommendations?
My closing recommendation, I would like to tell the viewers outside there that we need to see how we shape our children right away from the time when you are bringing up the children. Don't leave them for the teachers. Also ask them, try to ask them what they want to do so that you can support them. And they need to use, they need to be very innovative. We need to support innovation. We need policies that can also support innovation. In Parliament, I think that is an area we need to venture to see that at least every parastatal has a table for innovation so that we can continue supporting our brain and look out for how we can solve these challenges. And also, like I told you earlier, she has talked about minimum wage. Minimum wage, we need to support it. The last time we met the president, actually, he was not talking about the investors this time. He was saying that we need to research more about the minimum wage. He needs more knowledge about it, and then he's embracing
would also like to
it.
hear the president saying they need to research more on the protection of sovereignty bill. But ladies, thank you so much for your contribution to this conversation. It's been wonderful to just help us understand what the outcomes of the survey are, what are the indicators, and how can we use these to actually then propel and plan better for our economy, for our country, but more so for our young people, to bridge the gaps between employment and unemployment, but also to balance between informal sector